Alright everyone, welcome to the SimIAm channel. How's it going? I know it has been almost a good 3 weeks since I've uploaded, and for that I'm naturally very sorry. There was sickness to deal with as well as a few other things, but everything has been taken care of, and so I'm very happy to be bringing you today's video. Now let's get right into it. So there's something I want to ask all of you. What are your guys' pet peeves when it comes to music? Whether it's something an artist does, something the fans do, or even something the genre itself tends to do. Well, for me, nothing bothers me more than seeing two artists get compared to each other, right? My problem has to do with the fact that we even call them artists to begin with. If they're artists as we say, well, my opinion is that we should leave them be to pursue their own forms and styles of art. By comparing two artists, we typically end up making one of them invalid or otherwise less valuable compared to the other. And this leads me to the whole point of this video. What would happen if today I take an artist and hold up two of their paintings side by side, and ultimately together we try to decide which one is better? It's the fairest type of comparison in my opinion, as in this case, only JGivens, which is our artist for today, can really match himself blow for blow. So with all of that in mind, we're going to take two of his great projects, LV Envy and Fly Exam, and by the end, hopefully we can reach a conclusion on which one was better. So let's start with LV Envy. So LV Envy was the wonderful gem of 2013. I was still a kid when this project came out, and I remember the entire thing clear as day. Yeah, I might have some biased feelings towards this album, but it really is a classic. It captured that sleepless essence of Las Vegas and commentated on it from a detached and observant perspective, all the while influencing the minds of its listeners with solid biblical truths. Of course, this was also where I was first exposed to JGivens' distinct penmanship. JGivens makes liberal usage of literary devices in order to get messages and atmospheres across in his music. Now, let's talk about another thing that this album truly excelled in, which was atmosphere. For a project that details the nature of Las Vegas, you'd think it would be full of loud, jazzy sounds and the works. Interestingly, this album does incorporate a lot of live instrumentation and even jazz in some areas, but it takes an entirely different approach than expected. LV Envy actually captures another side of Las Vegas that not a lot of people talk about, but having been born and raised in that city, I definitely understood it back then and even more so now. This feeling is captured in songs like Bienvenue, the Bus Stop song, and Stop Requested, as well as multiple other songs. LV Envy spoke on the underbelly of the city and as a result captured a gray unhappiness which is often covered by all of the smoke and mirrors. Now, don't get me wrong, I really love Las Vegas, but it's no less broken than any other city out there. Maybe even a little more than others. You could argue that songs and projects like these, which are maybe a little difficult to understand, hinder a listener from grasping the full message of the album, but I see it a bit differently. This album from JGivens works almost like a funhouse. Each time you go in, there's something new to discover, some underlying meaning that wasn't there before. Albums of these sort have amazing replayability because even after the fun of dancing to it wears off, there's always some lingering message that taunts you, daring you to come back and listen again to try and understand it. Think about it for a second. How much of the Polar Express song is referring to American slavery? And how much of it is actually referencing the biblical fall of humanity? Or maybe, who's the famous and dangerous character being discussed in the song Internationally Known? And why do those gunshots end the song so abruptly? Or if that's not up your alley, think about the song Can't Say. Who is JGivens even talking about in that song? There's mysteries like these that I almost feel I wouldn't understand unless I asked JGivens himself to explain. And so I would say that this album was masterful at the art of intrigue. Well, that's enough about LV Envy though. What about Fly Exam? Did it offer any improvement or new elements to enjoy? Whereas LV Envy sought to capture the entire essence of a city, Fly Exam is more of a journey that seeks to examine the very core of man's heart. As the title implies, the project investigates mankind's affinity for soaring high, first looking at the process of going up and then the inevitable process of crashing down. Do our desires align with flying near the eternal sun? Or are we more focused on getting close to the sun that's before our eyes? Fly Exam dives much deeper into the human mind than LV Envy did, and the world within the project is noticeably smaller for that reason. But this isn't a bad thing necessarily, right? Because this approach allowed JGivens to focus on portraying humanity and our tendencies towards sin. And like humanity itself, this album is very complicated, and fittingly it comes with a production to match that nature. When you have the time, I highly recommend listening to JGivens himself explaining his musical approach with this album, as it's amazing, and he explains the whole project much better than I honestly ever could. However, doing my best to sum it up, FlyExam's production is meant to simulate all the experiences of flight and being suspended in air. According to JGivens, the album is actually divided into two sides, as it were, with side A representing the ascension and getting too high, and side B representing descension with an ultimate low point and then a recovery. As you travel through the songs, there's a sense of constant shifting as far as your position in the air goes. It makes for a project that seems to actually progress as you listen, until you finally hit a steady speed and altitude at the last song. There's a lot of sounds and effects that could only be described as being reminiscent of outer space or floating through the air in this album, and it's all a very intentional effect on JGivens' part. If the lyrics don't pull you in, the instrumentals alone definitely could, as this album contains some incredibly expressive and atmospheric production. As with LV Envy, we'll wrap this up on one final strength of the project. Thanks to how much of JGivens' personal experiences were poured into FlyExam, it's almost akin to reading a diary. It's extremely personal, and the moments that hit hard successfully do so because it feels like JGivens has gone through what he's talking about. The lowest point mood-wise in this album, which is Hummingbird's stance in my opinion, wasn't just a complicated sad song. The song is almost hopeless, and at the very least gives off that demoralized feeling which comes when you're at rock bottom. Fortunately, this capacity for portraying feelings works in other ways too, such as in the final song, They Said There'd Be Jetpacks, which brings a much needed sense of contentment with the ups and downs of flying high. FlyExam had a clear and engaging beginning, an exciting high point, a depressing low point, and finally a realistic and smooth ending. It was a lovable experience from start to finish, and it's as much an examination of your heart as it is of JGivens' own heart. So, as things would have it, both projects were great and well thought out. That much is clear. Which one is actually better though, right? I mean, you could look at LV Envy and say that one was the best. LV Envy does have the simple bonus of coming before FlyExam. Yeah, FlyExam was really good, but it came long after LV Envy, and by then JGivens had a lot more experience. Oh, and on top of being the first, LV Envy also felt a lot grander than FlyExam. Whereas FlyExam focused on the condition of man's heart, ascension and descension, LV Envy looked through the entire scope of a city and provided in-depth remarks on a physical, emotional, and spiritual level. It's almost as if you were touring the city with JGivens himself, witnessing a massive but silent battle between God and Satan going on in various areas. LV Envy has more than just that going for it too. The live instrumentation means that LV Envy doesn't have a solid sense of time to it. It came out in 2013, but hey, it sounds like it could have come out years before that, and it also sounds like it could be from this very year. LV Envy is aging slowly in my opinion, because it had so little in common with the hip-hop of its time. FlyExam sounds much more definitively recent, and while that's not bad, it also means that it doesn't have the same unaging effect to it that LV Envy has. Because LV Envy had a broader focus in mind than FlyExam, it also covered more topics in a powerful manner. Each song tends to its own matters, and so songs like the Bus Stop song and They Say have completely different messages that can mostly be absorbed apart from each other, as far as I understand. If you miss anything, it can usually be found by listening to that particular song again, and you don't have to worry that the answer was in some previous song. It's for sure not easy to top a project like that, but maybe JGivens managed it. FlyExam did take the core elements of JGivens as an artist and amp them up, especially compared to LV Envy. The literary devices, the impressive and expressive vocal range of JGivens, the creative way of delivering messages, all of it. While it's debatable whether or not FlyExam is actually better, it's clear that JGivens made some sort of improvement between these two projects. His range of flows have improved as well, as FlyExam saw JGivens trying different rapping styles more often in order to provide a more sonically diverse experience. This is really a strength for the album when you consider that LV Envy had a lot of live instrumentation. Now I know, I just mentioned with LV Envy that was a good thing, but it does also mean that LV Envy sometimes felt a little samey. The only vastly different song in my opinion was Sin City Bread, as it had a much more organic California flavor to it compared to the other songs. Meanwhile, remember, FlyExam sought to capture the experience of flying and being suspended in air. and so the album's production is heavily varied as to capture the many different feelings of flight. Some songs have a distinct upbeat sound to them, that feeling when you're rising. Other songs feel frozen in place, that moment right before you crash. This album was also a lot more personal than LV Envy. Whereas LV Envy had that detached and weary aspect to it, Fly Exam is vibrant with emotions and personal pains. And it's not as though JGivens is crying or yelling, or anything of the sort, right? He's still one of the more stoic rappers out there. It's just that with this album, there's really a lot of moments where it sounds like he was going through something joyful, or conversely, something tragic, as he was making these songs. The pleasant and painful moments of this album are made more powerful because JGivens himself seems to be experiencing whatever the particular song is talking about. His heart is a bit more on his sleeve, so to speak, and the project has the ability to resonate very strongly as a result. I may have listened to LV Envy a lot more, but I remember more distinctly the messages and emotions of Fly Exam, the actual experience of listening to it. Alright, so it turns out that both albums are actually pretty good, and they each have stronger areas than the others for sure. I feel about ready to make a decision for myself, but what about you guys? You might disagree with what I'm about to say, or you might agree completely. Either way, let me know your thoughts on which was better in the comments. Now, for me personally, even after seeing all the good that Fly Exam has to offer, I do have to go with LV Envy. I know. I just got through saying that essentially, Fly Exam is the result of a more refined and experienced JGivens. However, that doesn't equate to being automatically better. Even though it's not as polished, LV Envy felt more experimental and open to different perspectives. I feel as though the project can be interpreted and experienced in many ways, as opposed to the more focused, albeit abstract themes of Fly Exam. The live instrumentation, as I said before, ages really well. I've had the album in my library of music for almost 5 years, and I still listen to it. And while part of that replayability is due to the production, it's also because, unlike Fly Exam, which had its full message spread out between all of the songs in an equal manner, LV Envy was a lot more isolated. The songs flowed well between each other in terms of sound and pacing, but message-wise they were all over the place. Personally, I found that it provided a more accommodating listening experience. If I wanted to feel a certain theme or message, I could go to a particular song. This wasn't really there with me for Fly Exam, where JGivens' excellent writing instead provided for a continuous momentum throughout the project. Each song added up onto the last one with Fly Exam, and while that's actually really awesome, the songs don't feel as powerful individually, unlike with LV Envy. LV Envy, for me, felt like JGivens making his first heavy wave in the indie hip-hop scene. It was both bold and highly eccentric. The subject diversity and soothing production made it easy to pick up and put down at any time. And overall, I have to say that I think it was better than Fly Exam, even if by a small margin. But none of that may matter because what do you guys think? If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and please hit that subscribe button for more. Let me know if you enjoyed seeing this type of video, as I had some ideas on other artists to do this type of thing for, such as Aha Gazelle in the Trillium series, Jerry Mana with the Holy Weapon series, Paris Chariz, and more. Now, thanks for watching everyone, I'm glad to be back, and until next week, peace out.